Hi, and welcome to another episode of Wine and Wisdom. I'm Thomas Le Hoang, and you're listening to the TL podcast, where knowledge is shared and no one takes themselves too seriously. Hi, how you guys going?
Yeah, fantastic. How are you?
Oh, that's great stuff. All right, let's kick in. Let's kick in before we do anything at all, because we're gonna have to go through this book. I don't know about you, but man, I find myself having to read and reread the chapter probably at least twice. I've never been slowed in my reading, and this book is just holding me back. It's taking me back all the time. So we're only on rule number 2. I mean, there's another 10 after this.
We're definitely not a book for the last minute crammer, as I've found out.
Yeah.
All
right. So, Megan, you want to introduce the book?
Yeah. So
the book, and then maybe the chapter.
Yeah. So we're reading the 12 Rules of Life, Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson. We covered chapter 1 last week, which we learned a lot about standing up straight and having our shoulders back. And this week, rule 2 was to treat yourself like someone that you're responsible for helping, which I thought was a pretty relevant topic at the moment.
Yes.
Given what, like, being in lockdown and everything that we've got happening around us. And I thought that, it said a lot just in the heading, the title of the chapter, but once you got further into it, all the first kind of sub paragraphs were basically saying that you are more likely to look after your own animal than you are to look after yourself. If you got prescribed something by a doctor, then you go to these professionals for their opinion, but then when they tell you their opinion, you want to try and prove them wrong or go against what their advice might be. So I just thought it was so relevant to this time and everything that we've got happening at the moment.
I actually turned it off there because I clearly treat my body like a temple. So I don't know what he's talking about at all. I take all the medications, all 15 of them that I've got.
Well, according to him, actually 1/3 of people don't even take their prescription.
No.
I mean, this is the amazing thing. They even did studies of people who had transplants, and it's amazing. You just receive a new transplant, and you're probably thinking like grateful for that second chance of life, and then you don't look after it. It doesn't make sense.
Well, it probably does make sense because it depends. So depending on the reason that you had to have the transplant, but I know people who have had to have kidney transplants due to alcoholism or liver issues due to alcoholism, and they get the new liver and go straight back to drinking. So adding a new piece to your body doesn't change the mindset that got you in the shit in the first place, I think is the point there. Probably explains why you would think you'd be grateful for a second chance at life, but if you're drinking yourself to death anyway, you probably weren't that happy with what was going on in the world as it was. So.
I mean, you wonder whether that has something to do with this second wave where people are asked to be in lockdown and they go, oh, well, we survived the first one, we're going to be fine. And then they go through that symptoms of not looking after themselves because it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
Probably comes down to habits as well. It's all well and good to say that, you've been given a second chance and things like that. But if your habit is already created that you live a certain lifestyle, it can be very hard to change that lifestyle, even with the people facing death or illness or whatever it is. It can still be very hard for people to change their lifestyle.
It's no different to people who win the lotto being broke a year later. They didn't have money to begin with. What money they did have, they spent on lotto tickets, which probably isn't the best investment on the planet. And then they win $80 million, and within 2 years, it's all gone because the habits don't change. The psychology doesn't change. You're given a gift and you waste it.
Now, after that, he spoke about chaos, the difference between chaos and order. What did you guys get? I mean, I was reading that bit where he actually said that chaos is feminine, and I
Yeah,
couldn't help but think of you, Cam. I thought Cam is going to use that line.
I knew it was coming.
He went on for pages and pages and pages explaining that a lot of the things we see in life, or a lot of our philosophy, is based on male and female. So yin and yang, masculine and feminine, and how that's come to be over time. It's not a scientific fact; it's a philosophical fact, because we didn't have science for a long, long time. And I was quite pleasantly surprised to find out that the masculine energy was where order exists, and the female energy is 100% where chaos exists. So if it's in the book, it must be true. I think
Like when I read the heading, I thought, oh, I know where this is going. And then I read it and I thought, shit, that's not where I thought it was going.
Much like last week, where it said you want to be a strong male lobster, we're talking here about the masculine being the order. And what we can clearly work out from this, those few notes, Megs, is that you're the reason the podcast went off the rails last week. Clearly.
Oh, yeah. Thanks. No. I'll take one for the team, Cam.
Chaos, mate.
I've got broad shoulders.
Chaos theory. What about it, though? I mean, where's he coming up with the fact that the female side is the chaotic side?
I probably sort of thought that it was to do with like the fact that females probably are more emotional beings. So the chaos kind of relates to the emotional side, whereas the order, being a male, you know, they are a lot less emotion driven in their thinking. So when they make decisions or when they think certain things, it can be quite clear, whereas with females it can be very unclear.
I think, if I can dig myself out of a little hole here, when a lot of people talk about masculine and feminine and male and female, they're talking about the energies, not so much the human. I mean, we know men who have got a lot of feminine energy and women who have got a lot of masculine energy. So it's not, I don't think it is about the body type you're sitting in. I think it's about the energy which you represent, which would then make sense. People with a lot of feminine energy are very emotional. I've been told that I've got plenty of it because I'm up and down like a yo-yo at times. So if that saves me with all the ladies, thank you.
But the beauty of chaos is that it's a place where changes happen, and thanks to chaos, it's actually it brings a new order, and so we need to welcome chaos, the changes that really bring us to a new order. Really,
I found in rule number 1, he was quite he talked quite friendly towards chaos. I feel like in this rule he's talking as about chaos as if it's the devil, and that it should be avoided at all costs. It seemed
no. I think he's still asking us to embrace it, because for him, chaos is the start of things, and I think that the start of things has to do with mother. Mother is a start of life. Mother is a start of a child, and so our brain actually reacts very quickly to chaos. You know, to that start of things. We, in the end, we do a lot of things for order, but that's because of our reasoning, our thinking, where everything starts from that chaos, from the mother, from the origin. And where I disagreed with him, and again, we can always agree with part of the book, is how he moved from there to Adam and Eve, you know, and the Garden of Eden, and it's a good discussion, because he's trying to explain the story of Genesis, but he's also questioning, for example, like, you know, if God really is almighty and is so perfect, how come he allowed a snake from entering his Garden of Eden? It's a good question, right? And at some stage, God is also looking for Adam, so he's screaming out for Adam, and you're thinking, hold on, if God can see through the bushes, really, why would he have to? So I love the fact that he's questioning some of these things too. But there is that fight between male and female, and to me, I don't get it. the chapter to me is all about we need to feel responsible for ourselves, and which is something that the Stoics, the book on the Stoics have really taught us. It's if you want to find a solution from challenges that is outside, you have to go within and find them, right? But there he goes into female and male energy, and then Adam and Eve. I don't know. What do you guys know? Because I don't know.
Now, I was trying to work out how he would tie it all in at the end, but I couldn't see it being tied in at the end. He starts off talking about how we don't look after ourselves as well as we look after other people, and then he does go into the male and female energy, and then he started talking about the Bible. And as soon as he started talking about the Bible, that's the end of me. But
the only thing that I could see is that because Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit, they went from not seeing only the beauty in them to now seeing the imperfection in them. And I think that's what it is. What he's trying to set up is quite often we only see the bad side of ourselves, and that contributes to why we don't look after ourselves. What he's trying to say is because of Adam and Eve, I ever catch those guys, I'm gonna sue them. Because of them, they have made us conscious of our own deficiencies. Hence, that's when after the fruit, that's when Adam and Eve use leaves to cover themselves, where before they didn't, you know? And so I think he's trying to explain that somewhere through our youth ourselves, we develop that kind of anxiety, worry about what we look like and how we come across. But also he's saying that through all of these generations, which goes way beyond the world of mammals, we have developed that. We have in our DNA that drive to be self-conscious about your lack and your negatives. It's innate. I think that's what he's trying to say.
Then why? So Adam and Eve create the awareness of our imperfections, but then it's also saying because of our awareness of our imperfections, we don't try and change them or fix them. We let ourselves get worse in a lot of circumstances. So it's a hard topic to wrap your head around, I feel.
Oh, man, seriously, man, you can read and probably even if you sat in front of him, you probably wouldn't get it. But I think that he's trying from this chapter to just let us know that it's okay. This thing here is inbuilt. That we always find a way to bring ourselves down. That is something that is part of our own nature. I think that's what it is. Because he then in the end just spoke about the values of vision, the values of being driven. I mean that gets us to almost be mesmerized by something else rather than look and feel sorry about ourselves.
Interesting.
He finished it the same way that he, like, basically with almost exactly the same title of the chapter, but he just said you could begin by treating yourself as if you were someone that you were responsible for helping. And I think the point that he's trying to get across is that if someone came to us and asked for advice or asked for help, we would give them the advice and the help that comes from the heart. But with our own lives and our own decisions, sometimes, you know, you don't give yourself the same advice you'd give someone else. You treat yourself differently because of your ego, or because you make excuses, or because you're worried, you know, what people might think. And so you take all of that into consideration. Whereas when you're giving advice to somebody else, or you're treating someone else a certain way, you're treating them without thinking of any of those things. You're only thinking about them and the advice that you're trying to give and how you're trying to help them. Yeah. Whereas with yourself, you're looking at all these other factors that come into it.
We've spoken before, especially to do with the Stoics, about the self-talk, and that you know, we should never say things to ourselves that we wouldn't say to somebody else in a negative sense. And I think part of it, sort of a different side of the coin to what you were just saying, Megs, is where we'll find excuses for ourselves and all that sort of stuff, but we also treat ourselves like shit when we are hard on ourselves. We're also very, very hard on ourselves, and when issues do arise, we'll say things to ourselves that we would never say like I would never say to you or to Thomas, or maybe to Thomas, but not to you, Megs. And that's part of it too. I mean, I think he's getting it. I think if you could have an overall, what the rule is meant to encapsulate is, you would never call yourself. You'd never call your mother the names that you call yourself sometimes, and you got to be look after yourself a bit more mentally that way as well.
Yeah, for me, the last page, like Meg said, he encapsulated everything when he says you must keep the promises you make to yourself and reward yourself so that you can trust and motivate yourself. I was having a discussion with one of our sales managers the other day, and when he was having a bad time running the team, he was full of anxiety and talking to me. Now the team's like breaking record month in, month out, and he's calling me with a different level of anxiety because he's not worried about what's coming up in the future. And I said to him, listen, mate, it's non-stop. Things are going bad, you worry. Things are going great, you worry. I said, where do you stop? And the last question I left him with was, just answer this to me. In the last 7 days, what did you do special to look after yourself? And he had to think. And I said to him, all right, that's all right, man. I've got my answer, and I moved on. And I think that line, the way he says, strengthen the individual, start with yourself, take care with yourself, define who you are, and refine your personality. Choose your destination and articulate your being. This is, to me, the gist of the entire chapter. But he lost me with Adam and Eve. That's all.
So that anxiety on both ends of the stick, that's going to come back to hidden players, isn't it?
Yes, but that's what he's saying. It's that human being at the start did not have that self-awareness, that consciousness of lack about themselves, and he's trying to explain it through that story. That's also, he's got a bit of a metaphor, if you will. Right? I don't know why the metaphor is that. That's only maybe that explains the reason we don't look after ourselves. Anyway, I don't know. If you got anything else out of the chapter, tell me, because I struggled to even get just that.
Yeah, I don't know. You were expecting. It's an interesting. You're a writer, Thomas. You've written books. It's an interesting. The headline doesn't. The content didn't seem to match the headline.
Yeah, I agree.
I was waiting for. I'm a guy who definitely needs to take better care of himself and definitely looks after other people better than I look after myself. So I was excited when I read the headline that it might, give me some clues or give me something to work for. But it just went off on tangents and circles that I didn't. The reading I didn't leave me none the wiser, really. Other than
it started well. It actually started on the right tangent, because it talked about the kidney transplant and all of that, and then it talked about how you treat your pet, and then it just went into the rest. He might
have been doing us, mate. He might have been having a nice Chardonnay while he was writing it, and by the end of 4 bottles, he was halfway down. You don't know. I mean, he's American or Canadian. He's one of those over there, and they very, very. They're a much more religious culture in America than we are. So maybe the Bible reference for him was a way of communicating to large.
It's a way of selling the book.
Larger audience over there, but I don't know. He lost me a bit.
Yeah.
Lost me.
Oh, well, let's hope that chapter 3 is going to do better than 2 for us.
But Megsy, I'm interested. We've got a bit of time left. So you said that because you'd already read the book once before, and this time around you found it much deeper, much earlier. What's that a sign of for you?
I mean, it was more that I didn't remember it going into the religion side so early. But I think this time, I don't know, it's been probably, I'd say at least a few years since I've read it. So I'd say just a different mindset now, older, maybe wiser, not sure on that one. Different life experiences since then, having kids. I think I'd probably read it after I'd had Jordan, but it was definitely before I had Lara. And, I suppose too, with you know, COVID and everything else that we've been through. I just think where our brains are getting wired to think differently now without us even knowing. Well, we're knowing, but we don't, I don't know how to explain it. I think even if I had have read it 6 months ago or whilst not in lockdown, you'd get a totally different message out of it, I believe.
Well, we're evolving every day. Thomas talks about, we were doing some training with the team during the week about actually how to read, and he was making the point that if he highlights something or makes a note, he puts a date beside it, because whenever he goes back to reread the book, he's interested to see where his brain was at that point in time.
Yeah.
And the growth. I mean, we're going to, depending on what happens when we get off this, we'll get more out of rereading the chapter than we would, like, it's every minute, every hour that our thoughts and our opinions are developing. Yeah. So it's interesting how we pick up different things.
Even bringing it to a forum like this and hearing other people's opinion on it changes how you take it.
Yeah, it changes the how you're going to look at it again, right? It changes the way you're going to perceive the next chapter. And that's why I love doing it, because 3 minds always better than 1. And I read it the first time a little while ago, and I had to say, as soon as it started being a bit religious about things, I just skipped. I just went forward. So I must have said that maybe I only read the rules and then I kept on going. I didn't really delve into all those stories, you know. But because we're talking about it now, there was something that obliged me to just make sure I understood, like, every page. Especially I've been conditioned with Cameron, like when we were reading the first book, that Cameron could be asking us about the page of a line that he's citing. So we had to know the book a bit better.
They catch you out. I can't wait for the next 6 years it takes us to get through the next 2 pages. The sad part about it is we're trying to, you know, we would hope that this would influence a few more people to read, because reading is, you know, it's where I've got most of the biggest lessons that I've learned have come from books, or a lot of the good ones anyway. So we encourage people to read, but getting on here and telling them how effed we are, because book probably not going to help his book sales.
No, he doesn't need us, mate, to sell these books. I think that at the end of the day, we're trying to delve into someone's mind and see what he's trying to show us. And sometimes we agree with what we see, sometimes we don't, and that's part of the thing. If we have to agree with everything everyone writes, I think we'd be schizophrenic. All right. Anyway, good reading of this book. We'll catch up next chapter. Talk soon.
I think he's trying to show.
Just like
See you, mate. Bye.
Bye.